The new manager, the 2025 Jamestown Tarp Skunks manager, and everybody's excited about that, but they don't know why they're excited about having Frank Jagoda third be our manager. So talk a little bit about your mom and dad, first of all.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out why people are excited too. So, so grew up in Dunkirk, New York. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a middle school guidance counselor at Dunkirk Middle School, and was and still is the longtime head baseball coach at Dunkirk High School, going on over 30 years at this point. Very fortunate to grow up in a household like that. A lot of resources growing up as a kid, and a lot of cool experiences growing up. And then, being around my dad, who was a coach, a varsity baseball coach, and he also did varsity basketball and JV basketball and tennis and other things. And, so being around him and being around other sports and getting to go to practices and those types of things as a young kid was a really cool experience. And very excited. My dad is 2 years ago now, coming up on 3, was inducted into the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame. Very proud of him for all his accomplishments, not only as a coach, but as an educator in this community in Chautauqua County. And learned a lot from him, and very thankful for all his guidance over the years.
What's his background? Where did he go to school and all that stuff?
Yeah, Dunkirk, born and raised. So Dunkirk is deep in our roots, and he went to University at Buffalo out of high school and played Division I baseball there. I actually followed in his footsteps and went there to start before transferring home to play for Anthony Barone at JCC, and then finish my playing career at Gannon University. And then Anthony brought me back to be his assistant at JCC. So a lot of full circle moments for us here. But born and raised in Dunkirk. My dad was. My grandparents were from Dunkirk, and his grandparents came over from Italy. Really deep in our roots here in this community, and excited to kind of be back home. My wife and I moved home 4 years ago, going on 5 now, and excited to be kind of in a role that allows me to be involved in the community to give back.
Well, here you are. Clearly, baseball has been ingrained from day one. Were you Little League, Babe Ruth? What initially got you rolling in there? Yeah,
just like I think any kid in the area, played local Little League. That went from Little League to Babe Ruth to Legion ball and to some travel ball and Triple ABA and Triple A Muni, and played in leagues like this, and so just around the game. I think today you're not seeing the numbers as we used to. I just remember being in high school, my dad having to post a cut list for the varsity team, or having to move kids from that were still grade or age appropriate to play JV baseball and keep them on the JV team. And now, in the community itself, in the county itself, the numbers aren't where they need to be, and hopefully we could, as a Tarp Skunks organization, find ways to grow the game a little bit as well in our area. But just like any kid, especially kind of right around my age, just did the whole Little League to Babe Ruth to travel ball, or we played Legion ball. Played with a lot of guys out this way. My dad and Sam Bardo started the first American Legion team in this area. So. I graduated high school in 2005, so it was a lot of those guys from that kind of time frame from Jamestown, and the Dunkirk, Fredonia, Jamestown area never had Legion ball, and we started that right around 2003 or 4, and so that was a really cool experience, because we would travel to Buffalo 3 or 4 days a week and play against different competition. And the one cool thing that my dad always did too was he always had us play as high schoolers in the Buffalo Police Athletic League, which was a great competition. It was awesome experience. We played over at Delaware or Cazenovia Park, and just I remember like it was yesterday. Like, there was a guy by the name of Jim Negrich who went to University of Pittsburgh. He's from St. Francis High School. Went to University of Pittsburgh out of high school, and then was a pretty high round draft pick by the Pirates, and eventually got to AAA. Never quite made it. He's a scout now with the Cardinals, and Jimmy and I talk about this a lot. He had a ball so far off of me that, back, Kaz Park, Delaware Park, there's no fences, and it's like, you have a fence and you have a little double cut situation. We were just, for jokes and giggles, we're just throwing the ball from the out center fielder to the left fielder to the right fielder to the shortstop, and he's already rounded home plate. So, just really cool experiences that, I'm very fortunate to be part of. And I think, guys like my dad and Sam Bardo and other members of the community here really got a lot of young guys involved in baseball, and I think you're seeing that now as a lot of us are still in the game.
So, as a position, were you one of those pitchers, shortstop, center field type guy?
Yeah, I was a jack of all trades, master of none. And actually that kind of followed me throughout my whole career as a coach too. A lot of times, I would play, corner infield, middle infield on occasion, but I was not very fast, and probably should not have played anywhere near the middle of the field, but by circumstance would have to at times. But caught a little bit, played some outfield, some corner infield, and pitched as well. And so that allowed me to develop a deep knowledge and base of the game, and that kind of transitioned over to my coaching career. Anthony brought me on, like I said, at JCC. I started as a pitching coach, and that transitioned to being a pitching coach working at Canisius College for 3 years, a Division I program, and then I was a recruiting coordinator and pitching coach at Wingate University. And then I got my first college head coaching job as an assistant athletic director involved with compliance and academics, and a professor and head baseball coach at Patrick Henry Community College. At that point, I stepped away from the pitching side because I was able to hire a good pitching coach. And so I've done a bunch of different things, and that kind of parlayed into doing different things in pro ball, working with catchers, outfielders, pitchers, coaching first, coaching third, and then transitioning to a scouting front office role. So I've done just a bunch of different things, and I think that's really, to me, it's been a fun part of it, instead of, focusing on one thing. And just, really pigeonholing yourself. I've had a lot of cool experiences, and I've been to a lot of cool places because I've been able to do a few different things, which has been pretty cool.
Well, let's break some of that down.
Sure.
You, in fact, found yourself in a competing league, which, we're in the Perfect Game Collegiate League. There's a New York Collegiate League. You were a manager of one of them?
Yeah, in 2012. That's 13 years ago now. So now I'm dating myself a little bit, but yeah, so I was at Canisius, finished my first year there, or going through my first year there, and was involved with the Wellsville Nitros, was the manager for that ball club back in 2012. I was looking for some head coaching experience, wanted that head coaching experience, and was able to get that. And then following, being a college coach, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. You need the coaching experience, but a lot of times you need recruiting experience as well. So I haven't done the summer ball situation since then, because I focused largely on recruiting, and then obviously got to pro ball, so that's a little bit different schedule and different dynamic. But yeah, so it was in 2012 in the NYCBL in Wellsville.
Was the Regises involved? John Regis? He originally got that started, the team.
No. So my... oh boy, I don't remember his name, but no, he was not involved. The guy who owned the ball club also owned one of those Frito-Lay's truck routes. So it was, it was a situation where he was able to keep the team in Wellsville, and that could have been where the transition was.
Okay.
Kept the team in Wellsville, local guy, and I had a lot of free reign, which was great. So Steve Ackley was his name. Really good guy, good dude, and gave me a really cool and unique opportunity. I tell folks all the time who are like, hey, tell me how you started, what advice do you have? And I said, well, let me ask you this. Would you be willing to go away? And at the time, it was my fiance. I said, would you be willing to go away from your fiance for the summer to live above a funeral home for $1,500 for the whole summer? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I was a head coach in a college summer league for $1,500, and my housing was above a funeral home. And those are things that a lot of young coaches today, I think, take for granted. But there's a lot of checks and balances and steps you have to take to get to where you want to get to. So
then, really, transitioning from that aspect of being a coach, this was your first head coaching job, right?
Yes, that was. Sorry.
Yeah. And then did you continue into the coaching aspect of it? But at what point you kind of got into the recruitment, scouting?
Yeah. So that was summer 12. And then so go back to Canisius for 13, 14, and then in those summers spent a lot of time on the road recruiting and looking at potential student athletes for us. And I did a lot of different things in the Pittsburgh area, recruited out there a lot. That kind of seemed to be the area I worked in quite a bit, and got into Canada a good bit. So Yeah, there's always, when you're a college coach, the calendar really never stops. It just turns over. You're always looking at the next player, always looking to find good players. And so the following summers, it was always, really, really focused on heavy recruiting.
And then from college itself, I know you were last year where you were part of the Tampa Bay Rays. How does one segue from collegiate world to all of a sudden there's a professional opportunity?
Yeah, so for me, I spent 8 years as a college coach. And through those experiences, I met a lot of really, really great people, whether it was other coaches in the college space, high school coaches throughout the country, scouts, people in professional baseball, whatever the case is. My situation and how I got to where maybe I've gotten to is a little different. So, like I said, coaching at Canisius, my fiance and I were living together in Buffalo. She was getting her doctorate in physical therapy. She graduated and got a job in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So she left to go to North Carolina. I was in Buffalo. I was earning my master's, and I was a part-time college baseball assistant at the Division I level. So, great program. Canisius is and still is a great program. Many regional appearances. But it was time for me to kind of take the next step in my career and look for something full-time in the coaching space and kind of look at a different region of the country. My fiance was in North Carolina, so I moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina about 2 weeks after the season with no job, whatever money I had in my checking account, my car filled with stuff, and I moved to North Carolina to be with my fiance, now my wife. And I just, truthfully, I sent every single person on the USA Baseball website an email that I could find an email address for, and I heard nothing back. Didn't expect to. Never heard a thing back. Saw some jobs posted on the ABCA website. Applied for some things in the area. Fortunate to get hired at Wingate University in North Carolina. If you know where Fayetteville is and you know where Wingate is, they're not near each other. So I was driving 88 miles one way every single day, so over 160 miles a day, just to coach college baseball. Many times sleeping in my office just to get by, and doing a lot of different things, because again, you have to recruit. And, so if there was an event that I needed to be at closer to Wingate, I couldn't justify driving another 88 miles home to then turn around at 3 or 4 in the morning to drive back the next day. So there was a lot of challenging times that year, but you do what you have to do to kind of make it work. And that summer, I checked my email, and lo and behold, I finally had an email back from somebody from USA Baseball asking me, hey, would you be interested in coming to scout this event for us? Looked at your resume, have called around, we'd love to have you to be involved in some capacity. So it started with that, and then that led to another event, and led to another event, which then led to being a member of the national team as a pitching coach, which then led to being a scouting advisor, which then led to eventually a full-time role with USA Baseball. And so you just never know. And I really just think it's the old adage of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of times you have to do what you have to do to get by, and that's what I did very early on in my career.
But at some point you actually USA coach, and you were on the national team, mm-hmm. and you traveled. Yeah. I've been to a bunch of cool places. So after Wingate, I got hired by Patrick Henry full-time, like I said, as the assistant AD, professor, and head baseball coach. And then that summer was the 15U national team pitching coach for USA Baseball. We went to Cartagena, Colombia, and won a gold medal in the Pan Am Games. On that team were the likes of Mason Wynn, who's a big leaguer with the Cardinals, Pete Crow Armstrong, a few other big league players that are already in the big leagues, and really cool opportunity. And while there, and I'm not going to get into names here, but well, there, one of the players on the team's father is a pretty prominent baseball front office executive, and I got to know him a little bit and everything else. And about 18 months later, I got an email while sitting at my desk at Patrick Henry from the Minnesota Twins saying, "Hey, your name came across our desk from so and so. They mentioned your name, and we have a role that we'd like you to consider. Are you interested in interviewing?" And I went through the process, and my wife and I looked at each other, and at this point we had already moved from Buffalo to Fayetteville to Greensboro, just to be closer to Patrick Henry.
And we're like, we've just moved 3 times in like 18 months. Are we going to do this again? And we did. So we moved down. Like, I was hired by the Twins and moved down to Fort Myers, Florida, where I was the on-field rehab coordinator. Really cool opportunity. Fortunate for me, I got to work with a lot of big leaguers. Unfortunate for the big league club that the big leaguers were spending time with me rehabbing down in Florida. So this had nothing to do with anything medical. It was when someone was ready to do baseball activity after a medical situation, whether it was surgery or rehab. I was the person that kind of worked and worked on their return to play protocol, their beginning stages of getting back to baseball activity. So really cool experience there. And then short time after that, after about a year or so in that role, USA Baseball called and asked for permission to bring me on full time as their director of national teams. So pretty cool experience there. Joined the USA Baseball front office. Went to a few different countries. Went to Asia, went to South America. Did a bunch of different things, and really unique experiences and challenges too. And I've learned a lot in those different roles, and have worn many different hats. And I wouldn't trade any of those experiences in for the world. Representing our country was probably the greatest honor of my baseball career, and there's nothing like it. So it was a really awesome experience. And then from there, kind of parlayed that into working with the Tampa Bay Rays for the last 5 years. So, and here we sit today. So.
Well, you have a look. You have a look-alike, a guy with the Detroit Tigers named Riley Green. Did your paths ever cross with his?
They did. 2018, Riley was a rising senior. I want to say Haggerty High School in Florida. We were doing national team training at Nova Southeastern University, right there in Fort Lauderdale. The team was headed to Panama for a World Cup. And so on that team was Riley Green, Bobby Witt Jr., Anthony Volpe, C.J. Abrams, Drew Romo. Those are all big league names right now. Pete Crow Armstrong and guys like that. And so those were the type of players on that ball club, and fortunate to be around those players and around those type of people. But yeah, Riley was special. All those guys, obviously I think Anthony Volpe speaks for himself. So really cool opportunity there, and was part of a gold medal situation there. Went to Panama and won a gold medal, which was really cool. I was in more of like a team kind of scouting liaison type role. Was not part of the staff itself, but did more scouting and worked with the ball club hands-on, but was not part of the staff, but was in more of like a scouting advisement role. So really cool to be part of that. And there's been a lot of great experiences through that organization for sure.
And then you did 5 years with the Tampa Bay Rays, and then that's how we kind of connected. And how did you you got married? You got married and moved to Greenhurst, I think?
Yeah, Ellery, Greenhurst, kind of right in that area, right in between, really.
Yeah. And so you're now having really gone international baseball because of now your wife. You're here. And how did you even kind of focus in on the Tarp Skunks?
Well, so I was always, even when we moved home, I was in a role where I was still in the dugout coaching actively with the Tampa Bay Rays, and so I would go away for 7 or 8 straight months a year. And that just became a little bit of a different situation for me. I had other goals and aspirations in the game and some things that I wanted to accomplish, and after talking with our front office and our personnel folks, I was able to get myself into a pro scouting role, which allowed me to come and go from here. So it was really neat to be able to, wasn't many nights a month, but be able to put my head on my own pillow and help out around the house a little bit and be involved with my family some. And so and my wife and I wanted to start a family, and that went into that, and we were very fortunate. Thank God we have an 11-month-old son now, so that was a big part of this too, is we never really felt we were in position to do that given both of our careers and all of, moving and all these different things. And so we wanted to plant roots. We were here, and we thought it was time. So went from a coaching role up through AA as a bench coach in our system to a pro scouting role, which was a little bit more of a operations scouting front office lens, allowing me to come and go from home, and that was a great experience, a great transition. And really how things happen with you guys is you guys always do a community service event over at the Lutheran Center where my mother-in-law runs the cafe there and directs the cafe, and I just went on a whim one day to hang out, and we started having conversations, and things kind of one thing led to another, and you guys brought me on to be a board member to provide a different outlook, a different viewpoint, which I was very fortunate for, and here we are today as the manager.
Best hot dogs in the world, by the way, served at Lutheran.
I'll tell my mother-in-law Deb that. I'll make sure she watches this.
Man alive, unbelievable. So we're so thrilled you are. So now the process and of being the manager, but also really before that is the player procurement aspect of it. And I'm sure most people who watch that wonder, how does a team get together? This is not like affiliated baseball where you're affiliated with a professional team and somebody elsewhere gives you the team. It says, here, they're going to play in Jamestown. This is different.
Yeah, so, sitting in the board and going through different meetings and talking to our group, it became evident that one thing that always kind of, I don't want to say lacked, but one thing that, year after year is, the season would end and then there would be just a follow-up, like a recap, an after-action report, if you will. But after so much time, that the next team needs to be built. And so the one thing I just kind of suggested is someone to kind of head that process. As soon as the season ends, let's start building the next year's roster immediately. And that kind of, took a life of its own and ended up, we titled it the Director of Player Procurement. And so as soon as our season ended, started these conversations kind of towards the end of the season that, hey, I'm going to be doing this, would love to be on your radar for players and would love to, have conversations. And then it kind of, became official and then, started really hitting the ground running in September, building the roster. The league has a roster limit, I have to preface this by saying an active roster limit of 40 guys. We don't ever anticipate 40 guys to be here. That's just a safe number, because you'll always have guys that either don't show up for injury reasons, workload issues, homesickness, various different things happen where the next thing you know, you'll have 32 to 33, 34 guys here. And so we have a roster limit of 40 and started building that roster. We're right at the brim right now. So, we'll see kind of which direction we go in over the next couple months on the last final piece or two. But I'm really excited about how it's shaping up. And, it takes a lot of time, having conversations with college coaches, pro scouts, kind of old resources, past resources, and making new connections and relationships. And there's many different ways to do it. You could focus solely on the Division I type player, or you could focus on the right player. And we'll see. I feel comfortable on paper with how things look, but of course we have to go out and do it, and we have to do it as a staff first and foremost. But and then as a group of players, we need to come together and compete. So we're excited for what it looks like so far.
Is there a strategy of that 40 is the aspirational number that at least as you're building the team, do you look for the middle infielders? Do you look for the pitchers? Is there position players that you really want to check the box first? Yeah,
so if I was going to overload at a position, I would overload at shortstop, center field, and obviously on the mound, right? Because I think it can be assumed that your shortstop could probably in the summer play some games at third and second, and if you get 4 shortstops in, I think you're in a good spot because you're going to probably have 4 good athletes. Same thing, if you get 4 center fielders in, right, you're going to have 4 good athletes. So I always like to start in the middle, build in the middle of the field. As long as you're solid behind the plate and you're solid at short and solid in center, you're going to have a good baseline foundation to work off of. And then obviously, on the mound, you don't really, at any point, do you turn down arms? Obviously, I'm at a point now where I could be specific. Now, probably the last couple months could be specific on, whether it's a velocity I'm looking for, whether it's a side of the rubber, left-handed or right-handed, or I'm looking for, whether it's a short inning guy, maybe a potential 3 or 4 inning guy I'm looking for. I could be specific at this point, but early on, you want to develop those relationships with your colleges and develop and build those pipelines. And so there is a two-way level of trust that needs to take place. If I have a college coach that I've known for 15 years and he says, hey, look, I got a guy for you, I need to vet that, of course, but I also need to have some trust that somebody I've known a long time is gonna do right by their player and do right by us. So there's a lot of that goes into it. To answer your question, yes, there is some strategy that goes into it, but there's also, it is a college summer league, and there's various reasons why players want to play or don't want to play, and so you have to find that blend of what's going to fit for us.
As you look forward to last year, or going backwards, I should not look forward, but backward, you did go to a few games, you watched a few teams. Were you able to develop a sense of the league, not only observing last year just as a fan in the stand, but also you got this trained eye, this the perfect game collegiate baseball league as to quality, quantity. Do you have an observation?
Yeah, I think so. And it was really cool when I got those assignments put on my schedule because, it was nice to be able to go travel 3 miles away from home to work. So that was always nice. But I think it's a kind of a twofold thing. You kind of look and you see, you go to these games and you kind of look to see about the dynamic of the team and the team in the other dugout. And, is there a lot of players just sitting around? Is there too many position players? Is there enough pitchers? What does it look like in August versus what it looked like in June, in regards to the level of talent? This league has a really, really unique opportunity to do something special. For example, summer 2003, I was in the league and I evaluated 2 players that I turned in. I wrote reports in on, and this year in the 24 draft, this year's past draft, they were both top 10 round draft picks. Yeah. And so as sophomores, they were good players, or juniors, they were good players, and then I turned them in and identified they were good players. And obviously they were good players, and we didn't take either of them, so clearly other organizations thought they were good players as well, but they were top 10 round draft picks. And so that kind of goes to the talent. You may not have a player who's drafted out of the league in the current year, but it's the subsequent year that a player might get taken. And so that's what I would say. This league is more of a rising sophomore, rising junior league than it is a rising junior, rising senior league. Right. It's more of the younger college player than it is the older college player. Because as you know, things like the Cape Cod League and things like that, as players progress in their playing career, there's other leagues and there's other opportunities out there as well. This is a league where there's plenty of opportunity. It's a 46-game schedule, mostly all old New York Penn League parks for the most part, especially in our division, which is a really cool and unique opportunity. Good travel, nothing more than 3.5 hours, no overnight trips. So I'm giving a sales pitch to the Western Division here. So, but really, really good baseball. And you'll see anything from, high mid-major to even low Power 5, Power 4 talent to really good Division 3 talent. It's a smorgasbord of talent, which I think is really cool as well.
So you have an opportunity to bring your son, who's 11 months old, to be a Tarp Skunk player at some point. As you developed this and made this transition into kind of being player development, coaching, has this been well greeted at home? With Mama saying glad to have you here?
Oh yeah, Mama's happy for sure. No, Tara, I couldn't be more fortunate for her. She's been with me every step of my career from day one. We've been together 16 years. I've been doing this 16 years. We started dating the fall in October when I started coaching for Anthony. We both missed each other at JCC, so she's a local soccer star in her own right. Was an All-American at JCC and a soccer all-state soccer player at Maple Grove. And she's been with me from day one in my coaching career. And as we continue to transition, you always think like, did we ever make the right decision on certain things, and should we, and that's anybody in life. And so the one thing that we've always done is communicated at a high level and have done it together. And the coolest thing for me is that, having a son that, I followed in my dad's footsteps. And I'm not saying he needs to play baseball or even wants to do baseball, but it's going to be cool to have him at the ballpark this summer. And I'm really excited for, opening day. I'm going to have him come with me to the home plate meeting and carry the lineup card for me. So, we'll see. Hopefully he could walk himself to the home plate. We're still several months away from that, so I think we'll get there. But really excited for it.
Well, that's exciting. And as you looked at the schedule, and do you have a sense of 2025 Dietrich Park, June through really August?
Yeah. Well, the schedule's in a good spot. Obviously there's things that are out of your control when it comes to the schedule. I like the way it kind of sets up where our off days are. I like kind of some of our travel and when we travel versus when we're home. There's a good blend there. I know Christian Dulce, our general manager, does a phenomenal job of getting things and events at the stadium, different groups, various in-game promotions, and a bunch of different things. He does a phenomenal job, him and his staff, and the group of interns he brings in. And it's a really cool thing in the summer. It's really high level of baseball. You're going to see players specifically from our team, 9 or 10 different states represented from, I think it was like 16 or 17 different schools at this point. You're going to see that all summer long. And is it the days of watching the Miami Marlins players here or the Pittsburgh Pirates players here? No, but what it is it's a different opportunity to watch players from different colleges, different levels of play, different backgrounds come in and really be involved in this community. And so the schedule lends a hand to that. We play on average 5 days a week. Traditionally Monday is an off day with a six games a week schedule, and then because of like the unbalancedness of the schedule, there's a few weeks where we have a second off day and things like that. So it's just about getting our guys in the right frame of mind, and they're coming here to play and get opportunities and reps and innings and at bats, and we're here to develop them and to help be part of their developmental process. So I think the schedule lends a hand in that for sure.
I really appreciate all your time, Frank, here. As far as the players themselves and the community involvement and community development, what do you hope they walk away from their 2 months here in Jamestown?
Well, I hope they first and foremost understand and experience a first-class operation, something that our group, our board, our investors, the community as a whole put a lot of time and effort into the Jamestown Tarp Skunks. I hope that they enjoy themselves in that, right? Because when I talk to these players and I talk to coaches and I recruit them to play with us this summer, I say, you guys are going to be involved in our community. Our community is behind you. I think last year we averaged 903 fans a game, which I think is a really great number. I remember coming to Jammers games back in the day. There'd be 60 people here, right? And so, every night's different. Sometimes you'll get 1,500 and sometimes you'll get, 200, right? It's baseball. I've been in some lowly minor league towns in the middle of nowhere, America, where there's 75 fans in the stands. So, but I just want our players to have a first-class experience, and we're going to allow them to grow as baseball players, but as young men as well. And I think giving them autonomy in their development and part of in their plan to develop as players and people, I think, is important. And I think the goal is for them to enjoy themselves in that way, but also go back to their schools and say, man, I want to go back to Jamestown, or hey, coach, you need to send some players there next year because that was an awesome opportunity. They treated us with respect. They treated us well. We traveled on buses. We got meals after home and road games, which is unique. We used the weight room at Jamestown Community College. We stayed in these really nice dorm rooms, right there on campus, in a nice, well-kept stadium. We had some nice nightlife in Jamestown, Shaw Bucks, the Cherry Lounge, some things, and we were able to go to Bemis on the lake. There's a lot of different things in this area that I think that these players get to see and uncover as most of them experience a different area of the country. So those are the things I hope they accomplish. And of course, I want to have a great deal of on-field success as well. Any competitor will tell you that. Sure. The goal is to win and win at a high level. And anything short of that, to me, ultimately is a slight disappointment. But I think if we give them the autonomy in their development and their growth as not only baseball players but as young men, we'll get to where we want to get to.
This is terrific. Thank you, Frank, and we
Thank
really
you.
look forward to 2025 at Dietrich Park.
Yeah, I look forward to it, and come out to the ball field specifically on $2 beer nights where you can get rowdy and have a good time.
Thank you.
Thanks.